You are bathed in silence, dressed in silk chosen by strangers, led through corridors where every sound feels rehearsed. You were told you were summoned for service. You were told it was an honor. No one mentioned that you would never return home. No one explained that your name would be taken, not to be recorded, but to be erased. Hands adjust your sleeves. Another corrects the angle of your eyes. You were instructed where to look, and more importantly, where not to. Somewhere beyond a curtain, you hear breathing slow, measured, controlled. Power has a sound, and you recognize it before you see its face. This is not an appointment. It is an initiation. In a few minutes, you will understand why no one asked for your consent. You will realize that this night has nothing to do with desire. It is about access, surveillance, control. This was not rumor. It was not scandal invented by enemies. It was policy. And the figure behind the screen was not an emperor. Her name was Wu Zetian. What she built inside the heart of imperial China was so unsettling that history tried to erase the man first and then turn her into a monster afterward. This story does not begin with excess. It begins with a girl. Wu Zetian was born in the year 624, during the height of the Tang Dynasty, into a world that did not bend for women. She was not royal. She was not destined for the throne. She was the daughter of a wealthy timber merchant from Sichuan, a region where women's ambitions were expected to dissolve quietly into the landscape. While boys studied the Confucian classics in preparation for office, Wu read in the margins. She memorized history, poetry, and philosophy not for leisure, but for survival. Even as a child, she understood something most adults never articulate in rigid systems. Knowledge is sharper than any blade. At 14, her life was redirected by imperial command. She was summoned to the palace as a low-ranking concubine to Emperor Taizong. It was described as a privilege. In truth, it was confinement disguised as honor. The palace was not a home. It was a machine. Hundreds of women waited their entire lives for a single glance from the emperor. Most were never noticed. Most disappeared without ceremony. Wu did not wait. She watched. She listened. She studied power the way others studied embroidery. While hands around her stitched silk, she stitched exits in her mind. She learned the grammar of silence, the meaning behind a bow held too long. The danger in a glance returned too quickly. Taizong barely noticed her. Years passed untouched. Then the emperor died. By tradition, Wu's life should have ended with him. Former concubines were expected to vanish into Buddhist convents, to spend the remainder of their lives in ritualized forgetting. Wu was sent away, stripped of relevance, consigned to erasure, but oblivion never came. At 26, when she should have faded into anonymity, Wu returned to the palace not as a shadow, but as fire. Against every rule, she became consort to Emperor Gaozong, the son of the man who once owned her fate. It was unprecedented, taboo, dangerous. History never fully explains how she returned. Secret summons, hidden alliances, perfect timing. What is certain is this: Wu Zetian never left outcomes to chance. Once inside again, she moved with precision. Rivals vanished. The empress was demoted. Others were silenced, exiled, or removed without spectacle. There was little blood, only absence. When Gaozong grew ill, Wu became his voice. She issued decrees, met diplomats, delivered judgments. Long before she wore the crown, the empire obeyed her. In the year 690, she dropped the disguise. Wu Zetian declared herself empress of China, not regent, not co-ruler, but sole sovereign. She founded her own dynasty and ruled for nearly 2 decades. The Confucian order shuddered. Scholars quoted texts that no longer applied, because Wu Zetian was not a flaw in the system. She was its inversion. She governed efficiently. She reorganized ministries. She promoted talent over bloodlines. Every document carried her authority. But her most unsettling legacy was not written into law. It was built in the private chambers of the palace. Wu Zetian understood something few rulers dared to admit. The body had always been a political tool. Emperors maintained vast harems not merely for pleasure, but for loyalty, surveillance, and influence. Intimacy had always been currency. Wu did not invent this system. She redirected it. Where power had always flowed from emperor to women, she reversed the current. Not out of indulgence, but control. History would condemn her with particular fury, because nothing unsettles patriarchy more than seeing its own rules reflected back without apology. Male desire was politics. Female desire was treated as crime. By the time her role stabilized, Wu Zetian had not merely survived the system. She had hollowed it out and stepped inside alone. Yet absolute power cannot function on decrees alone. Power requires proximity, eyes, ears. bodies close enough to sense betrayal before it speaks. The turning point did not come on battlefields. It came in the perfumed corridors of the inner court. Wu Zetian established an institution known officially as the Congregant Ceremonial Office in name, but in reality, a surveillance network disguised as intimacy. What emerged was something unprecedented in Chinese history, a state-controlled male harem. The men were not chosen for noble blood or military skill. They were selected for different qualities: symmetry of face, softness of voice, intelligence paired with compliance, youth unburdened by strong family ties. Some were offered by ambitious officials eager to demonstrate loyalty. Others were located by quiet agents dispatched across the provinces to find men who could be erased without consequence. These were not companions. They were instruments. Each was trained not only in presence, but in observation. They learned how to listen without appearing attentive, how to translate pauses, glances, and silences into information. To belong to the Congregant was to become the empire's senses wrapped in silk. The first to rise was Zhu Yi, born without title or lineage. Noticed by chance, elevated by opportunity, he became Wu Zetian's closest confidant. To legitimize his presence, he was ordained as a Buddhist monk in ironic disguise for a man wielding immense secular power. Yi oversaw temples, commissioned monuments, and humiliated officials with ease. He spoke when the empress remained silent, but power devours its favorites. Arrogance followed access. Yi insulted senior monks, flaunted authority, and eventually crossed the only line that mattered. After a dispute with the empress, he set fire to the Hall of Light, a structure symbolizing her rule. The hall burned, so did his protection. Yi was ambushed and killed, his name erased, his ashes scattered, no mourning permitted. Power had withdrawn its favor. Others followed. Some remained quiet. Shen Nenkyu, remembered only in fragments, sought no titles and exercised no ambition. Perhaps a musician, perhaps a physician. He survived by refusing to matter. The most feared figures arrived later, the Zhang brothers. Zhang Yizhi and Zhang Chengzong were not merely companions. They became centers of gravity. Educated, composed, and ruthless, they transformed the Congregant into something resembling a hidden ministry. No decree reached the empress without passing through them. Officials bowed before them before ever seeing Wu Zetian. For the Confucian elite, this was intolerable not because a harem existed, but because it worked. Wu Zetian had taken the old order main command, women obey, and melted it in the fire of her crown.